Icon Radio, your number one entertainment plug.
Number one entertainment plug.
Welcome back to another episode of Deep Talk. Today I am joined by the beautiful, beautiful Kaya. She's a very close friend of mine, but she's also an incredible healer, person, being. She'll describe herself in her own words. She's doing a lot, and I'm really excited about having this talk with you, Kaya. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Everybody, you can remember to join us. We're live on www.iconradio.co.ke, and our Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram handle is iconradioke. Kaya, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Okay, so my first question for you is, if you are not your name, and you are not your body, and you are not your personality, and you are not your job, and you are not your relationships, who are you?
There is an essence within you which you can feel at all times. There is someone, some energy behind your thought. You can observe yourself thinking. That observer is who you are beyond all of these constructs and these conditionings.
And that's who you are? So who would you say you are?
So I've changed my name, and why I did that is because I no longer resonated with the essence of the previous identity I put into, I was called CJ back then, and I no longer resonated with that energy, with that construct, with the identity that CJ had formed for herself, with that conditioning, with the programmed mind of the CJ. To move into a new space, it is a good idea to change a lot about yourself. When you want to change something, change everything. And so the name came about while I was going through this transformation to become a new identity. And so I chose the name Kaya because it's got nothing really to do with the name, more that the energy and the essence behind the name was something completely new. Coming into a newness, you can create what you want. You can really be the creator in all senses of that word. You can choose who you want to be. And so I go back to that essence.
So really, for you, you are the essence?
It's the essence, yes.
That's who you would say you are outside of all those things? Outside of even Kaya or CJ or anything, you would say I'm essence?
Essence.
Is that how you feel?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that you've changed your name. Mm-hmm. Your original name was actually Celine.
Yes.
You've actually gone through several metamorphoses in your life.
Yes.
But maybe before we start with that story, maybe you can tell us who you are in the physical world, outside of the essence.
Absolutely. So I'm currently in the midst of starting a well-being home in Diani. I'm doing this with my sister. We're opening up our home to well-being, so inviting different programs, different offerings, different workshops around well-being, something that is not really happening within Diani at all. There's not much extracurricular activities outside of the beach, restaurants and bars, and we'd like to change the landscape of that. So we're starting our well-being home. We're starting a children's foundation for orphans. And my personal practice, I do a lot of emotion coding, which is releasing trapped energies and blockages within the systems, within your body, whether it's mental, physical, or energetic. What happens is when we do not process an emotion properly, this gets stuck in all sorts of different places in the body. And if we want to move forward, if we want to heal, if we want to return to balance, if we want to allow the body to heal itself, because the body does heal itself, it's important to release and to remove all those trappings, all those blockages, and everything that is holding you back. So I combine that with something called shadow work, which is pointing at the victim that lies within all of us, and sometimes it comes in the form of saboteur, sometimes it comes in the form of child, and sometimes it comes in the form of the prostitute. And this is not who we really are. This, once again, is the conditioned mind, is the programmed mind, and not the true essence of our being.
So you're working with, what would you say? You're working with people's energy. This is for people who don't know anything about, what both of us do. What are you doing? You're working. So would you call yourself a healer?
I call myself a healer on the energetics mostly, but also on the mental.
So working with the mind and with the energy of a person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You work with the mind and the energy. You also work with the body.
Body. So it's all three aspects of a human being.
Mind, body, spirit.
Mind, body, spirit. So you work with people, and to try to help them to transform their lives. That's something I picked up you were saying.
Yes.
To try to help them be where they want to be.
Yes. To become the highest version of themselves.
Yes, we both say that,
Yes.
don't we? Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But maybe I could ask you a little bit about, where you grew up and your life, and a little bit about growing up, because I know you grew up here, but you have different heritages. So
Yes. Born in Kenya, Limuru, from a Belgian father and a Burundi mother. I was here until about the age of 11. Then I left for Belgium. My dad wanting me to speak French. Shipped us off to boarding school, my sister and I. So I was between Belgium and France. I did a lot of work in Paris. I was back then into fashion, something I'm not at all into today, because I know the consequences of the fashion industry and how that really plays a huge role in the suffering of humans. So I no longer tap into that. I want to change that industry. So I worked in there for quite a bit as a merchandiser, visual merchandiser, completely disconnected from this essence. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I was a creative, and my best friend was going into fashion school, so boom, I decided to go into fashion school. Not that I wanted to do that.
So you studied fashion?
I started fashion.
In Paris?
Marketing and merchandising. Yes,
Okay.
in Paris.
Wow, at the center of fashion.
Center of fashion. It wasn't the easiest.
Yeah.
Paris is not the easiest place to be.
Okay, you didn't have an easy experience.
Didn't have the easy experience.
What was your experience like?
Not fitting in. And I was lucky that at least I spoke French, but if you do not speak French in Paris, you do not fit in. And so at least I had that going for me.
But you didn't feel like you fit?
Didn't fit.
In what ways?
It's not the culture I grew up in. It's not where I felt at home. It's not a place that's accommodating like it is here. People are not as friendly. There's a lot of separation. I want to say most places that I've lived in Europe, I felt that way. It's not a place I could call home.
What do you do? Can you try to see if you can articulate the difference between those places in Europe and here, and the difference you were feeling?
There's a coldness in Europe, and it's not just the weather. It's people are colder towards one another. There's less smiles. There's less... You cannot make a friend easily. I've come to this studio and everyone is so friendly. I'm sure I'll see them on the road and they'll notice me, and we'll probably go out for drinks or whatever. And that's something which happens very naturally here. It's not the same at all in Europe. You really have to either grow up with these people or be introduced to someone by someone who's very close to someone, and then you can fit into it, fit into their energy. But as an outsider, my colored skin, I'm not a white person, that also has an influence. And you just don't feel like you belong. I didn't feel like I belonged.
Yeah. That's not easy, is it, as a young girl? Yeah. So you're obviously trying to change yourself into something that fits.
Yes. Yes.
Unconsciously.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And fashion is a great way to do that, isn't it? Because it's like putting on things, also it's creating. So you're able to somehow play with those things.
You can recreate your image, which will definitely take you out of yourself to become someone new.
Yeah.
But you've got to embody that new person.
Exactly.
Yes, because a change of clothes isn't going to change who you are. It's really the embodying of a newness which creates a difference.
But for you, do you feel like, looking back at yourself now in those days, do you feel like you left who you were at some point? Like you kind of became someone that you really weren't? Because I know that happened for me as a young woman. You know, from the age of 14, 15, I twisted myself into to fit. So I dressed a certain way, I did my hair a certain way, and it wasn't like I was faking it. I genuinely wanted to do it. you know, but it's not really who I was.
I wasn't trying to fit in.
No, you didn't try to fit
I
in.
didn't try to fit in. I knew that I couldn't fit in many, many ways, and I was told that I was different. I felt different, so I didn't try to fit in that way. But it did cause a lot of harm within me. Emotionally and psychically, it caused a lot of harm. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and in French it's called anxiété maladif. It's a shyness disease. I was very, very introverted, and it didn't help to not feel safe in the place that I was.
Right, well, thank you. I think we're going to take a break for now. It is very much a common theme for a lot of young women and a lot of young people in general. Because at that age, we always want to, we want to belong. Actually, all ages, we want to belong somewhere, to something or somebody. We don't realize that maybe it's about belonging to ourselves.
Exactly.
That's the journey. Anyways, we'll take a break. We'll be right back after this.
Icon Radio.
Back with Kaya, Deep Talk. This is Deep Talk. So Kaya, so you were in France, you were in Paris, and you were a fashionista somehow, yeah?
Yes.
Doing merchandising and things like that. And then how did you come home to Kenya?
In between, I read a book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. My first introduction to Buddhism, my first introduction to the Dalai Lama, and to anything outside of the Western culture. And immediately I fell in love with it because death for me was very attractive. And so I read this book, and I had to go and meet this gentleman, the Dalai Lama. So
Wait, but we need to rewind a little, because you know what you said, right? So death was very attractive. What was that about?
leaving this plane.
You were interested,
In leaving this plane.
not in a depressed, I want to leave this plane, or what kind of way was that?
It was a depressed.
It was a
leaving this
depressed, I
plane.
want to get out of here.
Yes, and the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying showed us how you can choose when you die.
Well, it showed you how.
It showed me how I can choose to die. But you have to reach a certain level of consciousness to be able to do that.
So what do you mean to choose to die?
You can choose your date of death, when you want to die. Recently we had Thich Nhat Hanh,
Yeah.
who passed away. I believe he chose the 2nd of the 2nd. He chose that date, the 2nd of the 2nd at 12 p.m. That was a choice that he made to leave this plane. You reach a certain level of consciousness, you can achieve that.
Okay, so to explain to the audience, because some people may be thinking you were trying to commit suicide.
No, not committing a suicide. It was more about reaching the highest consciousness to be able to be fully
To
liberated
control,
and
yeah.
to be in control of myself. Exactly.
Fully in control, so even in control of your death.
Even in control of your death.
Oh, that's
So
intense.
I had to go
And this was at what age?
22,
Wow, that's it's intense for young age.
young age.
Most people at 22 are having fun, like it's about the
I was
party.
having
Yeah, we're
fun
still having
too.
fun. You're also having fun, but you had this side thing going.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So go on.
So I had to go and meet this gentleman, the Dalai Lama. So I looked him up. Lived in McLeod in the Himalayas.
So this book made you want to go and meet the Dalai Lama. So you said, I'm going to go meet the Dalai Lama.
Yes.
Okay.
And 3 months later, I quit my job and I was on a flight to McLeod in the Himalayas. And I did get to meet the Dalai Lama.
Wow.
I went to a couple of his conferences, 2 to be exact. And there's a specific space up there where he welcomes the Tibetans who are fleeing. And I got to meet him in this space.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, an official, yes, here I am, this, that, and the other. No, but he does acknowledge your presence and he just gives you a little bit of a blessing. This totally changed my life. I became big into Buddhism, big into meditation. This is where I discovered yoga, and I ended up living 2 years in India. This was where my true, deepest awakening occurred, and where I no longer felt different, because everyone there
Was it all different? They were all
is
different.
very
Different people.
and very welcoming in their differences. And so suddenly I felt at home. Or the most I felt at home, at least.
The question that's coming to me is, how was it to meet the Dalai Lama? Did you feel different around in his presence? Was there
Yes.
something?
Yes, well, he's definitely got a huge aura about him. You just feel very humbled in his presence. I felt very humbled in his presence, and a lot of respect. Especially in the space that I met him, he's welcoming all of these refugees from Tibet who are really suffering. And look what he's done in this space for all of these refugees. He's really made a home for all of these people, and that in and of itself is incredible. Yeah.
And so then off you went to India
Then off I went
for
to
2
India.
years.
Yes.
And you studied yoga, you studied...
Yoga, meditation, Reiki, those were the main three. And traveled obviously around the country, experiencing the different cultures, experiencing the food, experiencing how the people are so different from the north to the south to the east to the west. It's such a diverse and rich place to be. I totally fell in love with it.
And so it was at this age, like what, 23,
22, 23, yeah.
that you started to go into this, what people call... I mean, this is the thing we talked about last week with Paula. Like, you know, we use the word spirituality, but a lot of people associate spirituality with God and religion, and not to say that it is not, but there are different ways to interact with that, right? You don't need to go through religion to interact with that. So would you say, and we can talk about that more, especially for the people back home, to really understand this term and what it really means. But is this where you would say you began your spiritual journey? And what is spirituality to you? How would you explain it?
It's a connection to something which is bigger than the self. And where religion fails is it's really limiting. It's limiting you and what you have to do, how you have to do it. There's so many rules when it comes to religion, whereas spirituality really is just the connection to yourself and the connection to the bigger power. You can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it source. But there is a difference of energy between spirituality and religion. It almost feels to me that we've lost spirituality within religion, especially the extremists of this world.
Yes, but the extremists of anything kind of lose the spirit of anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for you, spirituality is really about connection.
Connection to yourself, connection to something higher than yourself, and then that becomes one.
Okay, so then it becomes one.
Yes.
So connection to the self, connection to the something higher and greater than the self, and then that becomes one.
Yes.
What does that mean, that becomes one?
You become the thing which is bigger than yourself. You become the creator. You become the essence of what it is you desire in this world. You become the sovereign I, not the little I that's conditioned by the mind, but the bigger I, which is liberated, which is free, which is able to do, be, and act in any way that you choose, as long as you respect yourself, as long as you respect others, and as long as you're out there to experience expansion, growth, and oneness.
Okay. So we're going to come back. There's so many terms you've used there that most people may not understand. So we're going to come back probably after the break to talk about that. But for now, I want to just... so you began your spiritual journey in India?
Yes.
Or in Tibet, probably. Or with that book?
With the book.
With the
I
book,
want to say more about the experience within India.
India.
Yes, which really changed.
And so that's when you actually started experiencing things?
Yes.
Do you know, is there something that you really remember which you were like, okay, what?
I lost my fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
One, I went to a place called Varanasi, and there a lot of people want to be cremated in Varanasi. For me, all of this was very new, but there was no tears, there was no suffering in the people who were coming to say goodbye to their lost ones. There was no pain. It was almost a celebration. And what I love there also is that those who do not have the funds or the means to be cremated are put on a stretcher onto the Ganga, and then the vultures come and eat the body, and it's so the cycle of life continues. And that was totally beautiful, completely lost this such a fear of not being, so the fear of death.
Mm-hmm. And that was probably one of the first things that happened to you in your journey.
That was the first thing that happened, and then a deep meditation where it points to who you are. So, are you your eyes? Neha.
Am I my eyes? I see through my eyes.
But are you your eyes?
No, when I go inwards, I know I'm not my eyes. No, not that eye. It depends on the eye you're talking about, right? And this is what we need to...
The eyes. Are you your eyes? I'm going to go further. Are you your teeth? Are you your fingernail?
Right now I don't feel like it. Right now I don't feel like it. Right now I feel like I'm connected to all of these things, but I'm looking out through them, or connected through them to the physical world,
Like
you know?
your thoughts.
That I know I'm not. This is where we have most of the pain, right?
Exactly.
Is our thoughts.
So if you're not any of that, what are you?
Then I'm the essence.
You're the essence.
I am for me, right in this moment, and it changes every time I do this kind of work, you know? Like for me right now, I am, yes, I'm awareness.
Exactly.
I see it.
Exactly. And energy can never die. Energy can only transform. Once you really get that internally, there is no more fear of death. Because you just move on to the next place.
Right, on that heavy, deep, beautiful note, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
Icon Radio.
We're back with Kaya. This is Deep Talk. Remember, you can follow us, Icon Radio KE, on all the handles, and www.iconradio.co.ke. That's the website and where we live stream. Kaya, thanks for being here again.
Thank you.
So we are at your journey in India, and where your spiritual, where you began your spiritual journey, and that kind of began with the fear of death. But that's what, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I think, 15, something around there.
Yeah.
And now, you are actually setting up a healing space for others. And it is about spiritual healing, isn't it? Because that's what it's pointing to.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, I want to share for me something that's, for me, spirituality is really, it's beyond the physical. So it's the realm of energy that is beyond the physical, right? And so, yes, we are physical beings, but there's also energy that caused this physical world. And that's, for me, the spiritual world, right? And so the work that you're doing is about healing at that level.
Yes.
So not healing physically by moving the knee and taking tablets or, pushing your fingers. I mean, although, in yoga you do use the body. And in a lot of healing you are using the body. But you're still trying to work with that energy that is beyond the body or within the body that's deeper.
Yes.
Right? And so now you're stepping into doing this work for and with other people.
Yes.
So how did you get from there, a young girl traveling India, also having a good time in the youth, to where you are now?
So we are spiritual beings having a human experience first and foremost. We tend to think that we are only the physical, and that's where we've lost our connection to spirit. So really delving into this thought that we are spiritual beings having a human experiences delves you into something which is much deeper and much bigger, as you say. It's beyond the physical. Would you like to ask me that question?
The question
again?
was, how did you get from this young girl traveling, just exploring her own, just beginning her own spiritual path, like learning about different practices, and how did you get from there now to becoming this woman who is opening this space for others, to work with others, now stepping into who you are now? How did you get from there to here?
Well, I feel it's part of my mission. So it's something which I fell into, but falling into it gave me a mission to be here. And so it came about naturally, and I've gone through different modalities, tried multiple modalities to see where and how I connect to each one and which one resonates with me the most. Being such an emotional being growing up, I chose emotion code, which seemed to be what I needed in that moment in time. Releasing all these emotions, all this density levels you up one. When you reach this leveling up one, you can do something else. Suddenly your consciousness opens up to different possibilities. Opening up to different possibilities moves you into a new space. Moving into a new space allows you to create yourself as a new being.
So this is your process? This is what you did for
This
yourself?
is what I did for myself.
So you
exactly.
released all these trapped emotions in your body?
Yes, and it took a while. Meditation was a big part of my journey. I would recommend meditation to everyone. Not being okay, silent with yourself is a form of trauma. And just understanding that you want to heal your trauma. I think we all want to feel better. We all want to be the better version of ourselves. We all want to move out of suffering. The Buddhists say that attachment and expectations cause suffering. And if you really think about it, it's true, you know? So understanding that, overstanding that, understanding that you want to do something to move yourself out of suffering. And so you look outside, what can I do to alleviate this
So
suffering?
was that what happened with you? You were like, I need to get rid of, you were suffering internally?
I was suffering internally, yes. And meditation really helped to
That was with the
silence.
depression and the anxiety?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and so the meditation really allowed me to go within myself and to be silent with myself. Understanding that expectation attachment causes suffering, I was able to pinpoint within my own life where I'm expecting and where I'm attaching. Once you get that, you can release that. You can start moving beyond your expectations and your attachments. And so that was the beginning of how I've come to where I am today.
Okay.
Meditation first. So yoga, I did yoga trainings and taught yoga for a very long time. But the point, the goal, the intention behind yoga really is meditation. They say just master one pose. One pose is all you need. You don't need all of these acrobatics and being flexible. It's got nothing to do with that. When you master the one pose, you're in total alignment, mind, body, and soul. And that is what...
And that's the state you want to get
and
to.
that's the state I want to get to, yes.
Mm-hmm. And did you get there?
I feel that I'm here today, yes.
Yes, beautiful. And I'm noticing you're not using I that much.
Yes.
You're using you.
Yes.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yes. And that could be, to be honest, my own journey, as there's been this form of non-identification with the I. Again, it goes back to the Buddhist teaching where the I becomes the ego. So especially the little I, and there is a difference between the little I and the bigger I.
So let's talk about this. Let's start from 101.
Yes.
The little I
Yes.
is the I we associate with our body, with our
The
personality.
conditioned I, which is all about materialism, all about pleasure. It's really the limited self.
It's the person we are told we are, right? We're told by society,
Yes.
this is who you are.
Yes.
You are Kaya.
Yes.
This is your body.
Yes.
This is your hair. That's your eyes. That's your
This is your
personality.
religion.
This is your religion. This is your race. That's the little I that you're referring to.
Yes.
So what is the big I is going back to...
The bigger I is the expanded self, where everything becomes one. There is no more separation between you and I. There is no more separation between me and the table, especially understanding that everything is energy. But these are just words, and words can only point to something. You really have to experience it within to get it, to really embody what it is to be the expanded I. And so this does take practice. I don't feel it can. I won't say can't. It doesn't
It can happen overnight to some people,
Yes.
but most people it's with
It's a
practice.
practice, yes.
So they get into this, you can get into this state where you're no longer just connected to who you're told you are, like Neha, the body. So for me, it happened, I had a bliss experience or an expanded experience, 2011, 12. I was in Ethiopia. I was working in media, high level mediation in that world. I was living in hotels and working with governments and things like that. And it's a long story, but I remember in that moment, I realized that the person I was talking to was me. It sounds crazy to people who have not experienced it,
Yeah.
but I realized the person I was talking to was me.
Yeah.
And then I went down because I was feeling a lot, so I needed to lie down. So I went downstairs and I lay in my bedroom, and I saw that I thought of different people, and everybody I thought of, I realized they're me. And then I looked out the window and I saw the plants at night, and I realized the plants are me, and I realized the night is me and the moon is me. And you realize that you're everything and everything is you, and it's difficult to explain the significance of that. What is this? Have you had an experience like that?
This is the embodiment of the oneness.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you've had an experience like that.
Yes.
And what was its significance for you in your life, having that experience? What did it do for your life?
It shifted from it was a progressive change, but in that moment of experiencing that, it shifted me out of the limited self into the expanded
You realized
self.
there was something more than just you. For the
Yes.
first time, you
Yes.
experienced that there was something more than just
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
And that's very, very powerful, because that's when we really realize this whole thing is something.
Yes.
Like this whole spiritual blah, blah, blah. It's something. There's something there.
I even want to go further than that. I really want to point that spirituality is a part of reality. And without the spirituality, we become imbalanced. And look at where the world is today. Yes, we've lost our connection with spirit.
Icon Radio.
And we're back. This is Deep Talk with Kaya. Kaya, we left off and you had just started to touch on it about look at the world we're in. And I wanted maybe to ask you, because I know you've gone through a lot of pain. You've experienced a lot of pain, even physically, thinking about the world and where we are. And I wanted you to maybe share a little bit about your own journey in terms of this world and how you're feeling it, experiencing it, what you think about it, and also where you've come with that journey,
So I can start off with my pain and show how I've progressed into none.
Where you are, yeah, because, I know you felt, but maybe I'd like you to share what you felt about the world and how it is.
I felt the world was very separated, very divisive, unfriendly, unsafe. Yeah, those would be the main ones. And this mainly had to do with the way I was brought up and where I was brought up and where I was shipped to. It's a very personal journey, but you do look outside and you can see the suffering of the world. It's not like you can't see it unless you're completely blinded to what's going on. Just step outside the door. There are homeless people. There's a lot of suffering.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. What do you see that really hurts? Like, what is the suffering that was really making you feel like that?
Why, when we live in a world of abundance, do we still have people who are not fed, who do not have homes, who cannot take their children to school, who are uneducated? This simply didn't make any sense to me. Not in the abundant world that we live in.
How do you know the world is abundant?
Look at nature. Nature is a complete cycle of its own. Even when we move into drought, the rains will come, and this happens on a natural rhythm. It's abundant. There is nothing we can stop unless we interfere with it as man, which is what we're doing today. We're interfering with nature, and so we've created complete havoc, complete chaos, complete disbalance in the world. And so the journey has been to come back into balance. And I wanted to help the world out there. You can't help out there if you're not helping yourself. It first starts with yourself.
Yeah, how can you help to balance something if you're not in balance,
Exactly.
right? Because when you go in there, you're going to bring imbalance into imbalance. You're just going to get messed around, aren't
Yes,
you?
You're going to project. You're going to feel the pain of others. None of that is really helping. So it's really about first finding your own balance, your own healing, and then you can go out and help others.
And now you still want to work in the world, right? You
Yes.
still want to do things for the world.
Yes.
Maybe you want to tell me a little bit more about what you're trying to do for the world.
For those who are committed to transformation, those who are committed to their freedom, those who want to experience liberation from the slave mind, from the victim mind, from the conditioned mind, I'm very called to elevate that consciousness, to empower these individuals to become what it is they want to see in the world, who they want to be in the world, so they now become the reflector of what they want to see.
So you talked about the victim consciousness, the slavery consciousness, and the poverty. What was the third one? Poverty consciousness. So maybe you want to tell me a little bit. What does that look like for a normal person? How do because they may not understand these terms. These are terms that we're using.
Okay. So victim consciousness would be, I can't do it because I don't think I'm good enough. That's totally victim. Who said you're not good enough? Yourself says that you're good enough. But is that inherently true? No, it's a thought pattern. Your thoughts are not who you are. So you can change that. Slave consciousness, what is that? It's a similar thing to victim consciousness, but it's also a putting yourself down. You purposely and unconsciously, but it is a purpose thing that we do because we always have a choice. We put ourselves down. We become the slave of something greater, or we feel that there is something greater in ourselves, which is not, again, inherently true. It's just a thought pattern. It's a program. Poverty consciousness. We feel that we can't do something because I haven't got enough money. That's poverty consciousness. If you switch that around and, for example, really start shifting your mindset into finding the abundance around you, and it's in such subtle ways. It's a smile someone gives you. It's, I'm able to give you a piece of fruit. I'm able to invite you into my home. I'm able to give you a pair of shoes. I'm able to feed you, all of these bits and pieces is abundance. It's something which makes you feel good. Start accumulating those things that make you feel good. You'll expand your consciousness. You'll move beyond that limited construct of, I can't do this because I haven't got any money. Yes, it's difficult when we don't have any money, but it's also because our consciousness isn't allowing us to open up, to move into something different.
And let me ask you, have you ever had no money? Have you ever been in a situation where you're like struggling financially?
Not like many I've seen.
Not like maybe somebody on the street, but have you been, so you're not speaking from always having everything.
Yes. There were times where I couldn't do or be things that I wanted to do when my peers could, definitely. But I cannot compare myself to those who are...
Well, no, you've experienced scarcity, let's say. You've experienced physical scarcity.
Yes.
And so you know that when you lift yourself out of that in your mind,
Yes.
then what happens?
Opportunities come in.
Mm-hmm.
Possibilities come in. And it's simply because your consciousness has opened. Your mental construct has opened just enough to allow something new to come in.
So I need to say this to the audience because people think, there's this and this programming, because you've used this word programming, and again we need to understand what programming is, right? But I know I've been taught from a very young age that work hard and you'll succeed. Work hard and you'll succeed. But then, I look at the lady who looks after my son and helps me in the house. She works so hard. And I'm not saying she's not a success. I mean, she's a great success. She has educated her son. She's done a lot. But I'm saying there's a lot of people who work hard. They're not tasting the success that maybe... also we have to understand what is the definition of success. Yes. Right? But fulfilling yourself fully, right, is the definition of success to me. But I do feel there's a lot of people who work extremely hard and don't feel fulfilled. Right? Yes. So that is where I started departing from this wisdom, and I'm like, let me check this out. And, what I realized was that there's no single opportunity in my life that I worked hard for. I didn't make the opportunity.
Yes.
Maybe somehow the things that I did led people to offer me certain things but it was mainly I think it was more, yes, I worked hard, but I think it was more my passion and my talent and all of those other things, and that's energy. Yeah. So there was no opportunity that I made. I used opportunity, but I didn't make it.
Yes.
So this is what I think people can understand about poverty consciousness, is where when you shift out of that level of thinking that you don't have and you aren't good enough and you're not worth it and you never make it and all of that kind of stuff, then you shift up into, I'm blessed, I'm incredible, I'm excited.
Yes.
Then a lot of people talk about it, and I think the only way you're going to know it's real is if you try it.
Yes.
But it's real. Things start happening.
Yes. But there's a fine line between just saying something
and actually feeling
it. And that's where we might miss out on something, because we're not using the feeling to generate the truth of what it is that we're saying. And so it's highly important to also use our feeling and our emotions. And an easy way to do that is to simply think about something you're grateful for. And this can come in any form. It can come in the form of, I'm grateful for my parents, I'm grateful for the food I have in front of me today, I have a roof over my head, this, that, and the other. Suddenly you're expanded into gratitude.
What happens when you can't get to gratitude?
You can't?
What happens when sometimes you're so down, you can't get to gratitude. Where can you start?
You start with what it is that makes you feel okay. And expand
from there.
And there's always...
So like I can't be grateful for the food in front of me, but what is it that makes me okay?
Yes.
What is that? So, example, like...
Well, you can't feel gratitude for the food that's in front of you. Why? Isn't this something that is feeding you, something that you need to be alive? Why would you not feel gratitude for this thing that's in front of you? If we cannot feel gratitude, it means we're blocked somewhere. And that comes back to perhaps the emotion code or all sorts of different modalities out there who will help us unblock that. A lot of the time it's got to do with our heart. We've gone through so much suffering and pain that we block ourselves off from feeling so that we do not get hurt again. But when we do that, we block ourselves off from the negative and the positive.
Mm-hmm. And just picking up on what you said, where you're okay, maybe instead of saying I'm grateful for, you can just say I'm okay in terms of my food. You can at least start there. Even if I can't say I'm thankful for my food, I can say I'm okay in terms of my food at least. I may not be okay in my finances, or I may not be okay in my job or my relationship, but I'm okay with food for now, for this moment. So you just start getting into that. And then from there, you can start to open up.
Body. Right? I'm okay because I have a functioning body. I'm okay because I can breathe. I'm okay because I can taste. Use the simplest things.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I do it with my pillow at night. I'm like, thank you for this pillow. Because I feel like it's so small, but it's really true. I'm like, oh, this is just thank God I have a pillow.
Yes.
Like I feel like, sometimes we're taught about gratitude, like, be grateful for your life, for your blah, blah, blah. And it's too big.
Yes.
So
It's about building on that sensation.
So let me ask you, in this moment, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for my sister. I'm grateful for my friends.
Very connected to gratitude, you are.
Very
gratitude. Yes. Yeah. I'm also grateful to just be sitting and talking to you.
Absolutely. Yes.
And to have Collins with us
Absolutely.
too. All right, and we'll be right back after this.
Icon Radio.
And we're back with the beautiful Kaya, healer, fashionista still, even though you're not doing it in the same way.
Yes.
Right? And I know you're also into organics, a lot of organic food in particular.
Yes.
And then also the children.
Yes.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about the last two, but maybe we'll come to that. So I want to talk about your experience working with people in healing. What have you seen? So somebody who doesn't know anything about this, what have you seen with the people you've worked with happen?
There's a shift that begins when they start to see the correlation between the emotions which are blocked and the transformation which happens when you release it. So you do have to experience it for then the shift to happen. But in the beginning, especially those who aren't really called to come, a lot of the time they're either invited to come or offered to come, etc. They're not really choosing to come. Those ones come in and they're a little bit hesitant as to how this is really going to help. But if you keep up with this practice, and I will interweave bits and pieces to empower the person I have in front of me, and that elevates. Once you can elevate that person and show them where they're being the victim, or show them where they've fallen into poverty consciousness, deep transformation and deep shifts can occur there, because they realize that that is not who they are, that they have a choice suddenly. They have a choice in what they want to experience. A lot of the time we feel we do not have a choice, that we're doomed to where we are, but it's not inherently true.
So it's like these people now, all of a sudden, maybe they're suffering with depression or something like that. They have a choice, they have a way to lift themselves out now, because they've seen that it's not real.
They've seen it is real. Of
they've
course,
seen
your feelings are real.
Real, yes,
That
okay.
is very, very real.
So what have they seen?
They've seen that is not who they are. Yes. Yes.
So they've seen that they are something lighter.
Yes. That their essence, their true inner purity and innocence isn't the conditioned mind. Once you can see that for yourself, now things start to open up and you can choose where you want to work. You can choose where you want to be.
So so you've seen this with clients.
Yes.
Yeah, you've seen where actually they're like no longer in this all the time.
Yes, and they start to be very conscious of what they tell me, because wording is so important. Your wording is programming you. So once you start to be in control and very present with what it is that you're saying, you know, your words have power, then you can start to reverse your programming by choosing words which empower you instead of making you feel small.
So let's go to this programming also. I mean, I still want to come back to a little bit like what you've seen practically on a practical level with your clients, but like this programming. So programming for me is just what the world tells you, and that it goes into your system and without even you being fully aware of it, you know? So just like you program a computer to run a certain code.
Yes, I use that analogy a lot.
Okay, so we're also programmed. Like I'm programmed really to believe in hard work.
Yes.
I'm not programmed to believe that if I'm enjoying myself and having fun, I'm going to be a success.
Yes. And that is an operating system. If we want to continue down this analogy, it's an operating system. When we upgrade that operating system, we can move into something new. And how do we upgrade the system? By choosing to move up, by choosing to release the past and to move into a new you. Now, it's not as easy as I'm describing, because there comes a point where you fall into a void where suddenly you don't understand, you don't realize, you don't know who you are. And that is a very good place to be, because you're shedding the identity of the old. So you can build a new identity. So being in the void is nothing to fear, though there is a bit of what one calls darkness there, because you really do feel a bit lost and you don't know which path to take. You don't know.
So
where
is this
you're
what
going.
you've seen with clients?
Yes.
Like they move from where they are, which is not in a great place. That's why they're coming for healing,
Yes.
right? And then they go into this place where they don't know who they are.
They don't know who they are.
And then
Transformation occurs on their terms.
so where do they get to? They get to who they want to be?
On their terms. So it's nothing to do with me from that point onwards. It's got to do with the person I'm working with you, the person in front. And what I mean by that is you've fallen into the void and now you want to build something new. You've got the space to do what you want because you've shed all the past. You've shed the old identity. What do you want to do with the new you? And that really is now up to you to construct.
And we've
the
had
new
a session
identity.
recently where
Yes.
we discussed that, right?
Yes.
And then I realized, oh my God, I'm in a scary position because now I'm like, well, what do I want to create?
And who am I without
who am
that
I?
construct?
Yeah. Who am I without that identity?
Yes.
So it's really letting go of who you think you are and for me, I see it as becoming more who you really are.
It is.
Right.
It is. It's almost like the onion, and so there's so many layers of the onion in terms of the conditioning and the programming, and we're peeling that off one by one until we get to the core.
And the power of becoming more who you are is the most powerful you can ever be is who you really are.
Yes.
You-
And that is an authentic self.
Yes.
It's a true
True
you.
self, yeah.
And we're here to be and become our unique selves and not try and fit into the molds. That has really, it's damaged us. It really has damaged us, and that's not who we've come here to be. We've come here to be ourselves, not what school has taught us or what our parents have taught us. That's just putting us into a box. And so the journey is to liberate ourselves, and that liberation comes in many different forms.
And what happens like experientially when you liberate yourself? What do you
Feeling.
feel? You
It's a
feel. It's a feeling.
It's a feeling. You have to experience it.
Yes. But just to point people in the direction of where you can go when you start opening that box of identity, of who you think you are, who
Or
you
think
told
of
you are.
yourself, you're in a prison and suddenly you let go. How do you feel? Free. You feel liberated.
Probably scared
A
also.
little bit scared because it's new.
You, yeah.
We're so stuck into the box of the known, we're afraid of stepping into something new. But it's only on the other side of that, in the unknown, that we can create something completely new. So we've got to be okay with being in the unknown. And that's where the magic happens.
So this leads me to my my next question, which is really about the work you want to be doing with the kids, which you're starting to do, and why and how that all fits in to all of this.
Well, the children are tomorrow's future. And if we keep repeating the same cycles, we're never going to get out of the
Where we keep telling
suffering.
them, you should do this, you should do this, you should be like this, and blah, blah, blah.
Yes. So we keep repeating the same cycle, never coming out of it. And what is it? We cannot create a solution from the same level of consciousness.
That created
Repeating
it.
the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So why do we keep doing that? Why do we keep doing that? Really, I'm truly asking us, all of you, why do we keep doing that? Why do we keep perpetuating this suffering cycle? We have a choice to step out of that. It takes some work, it takes some dedication, it takes some commitment. And the easiest place to start is with a child, because they're totally free. They do not have all these constructs within. They do not have all these I don't believe in myself feelings and beliefs that we go through life with. They're a clean slate, and that's the best place to start for the next cycle, for the next generation.
And where do you believe that is? Where do you believe that is? The next generation or the next cycle? What do you
It's up
believe
to
is the
us.
new? It's up to us.
It's
You don't
up-
believe it's created yet?
No.
It's an unknown.
It's up to us where we choose to move from here. And this is a choice that humanity has to make. Those who are doing the work are going to move into a space where they'll thrive. Those who commit to being in their old conditioned self will continue repeating the cycles that they're in. So the question lies, what do you want for yourself?
Yeah, it's very powerful. And so you want to do this work with children?
Yes. That's not only just the children. I want to work with everyone who resonates with what it is that I'm here to do and my mission. But the children really, when I look at the world once again, and if I really want to tap into elevating the consciousness of the world, the children are the ones who are going to be the change. The next big change is coming with the children. Yes.
And if we move from them to the organic food, which is something that is also so, where is that also fitting in, and why is that so important for you?
A lot of us know someone who has cancer, who has died of cancer. Both my parents died of cancer. And so and I know where this stems from. If you look at Kenya 20 years ago, cancer was not as rampant. What has changed? Our food has changed. Our seed has changed. The fertilizers have changed. And a lot of these chemicals have been banned in Europe, and they're dumped in Africa. They changed the words, maybe they changed the name of the chemical, but it's the same chemical dumped here because it's banned there and they don't know what to do with it, and here we are. And so it is, again, an awareness thing. We need to be aware of what we're doing and what is happening around us, and it's super important what we're putting into our body. If we continue feeding ourselves with chemicals, things which are not in balance, things that are not of nature, we're going to create more and more imbalances, which is going to cause more and more disease. And we keep going down that road. And we're doing it to ourselves out of a lack of knowledge, out of a lack of education. And so organic is really going back to what nature intended. And it shouldn't even be named organic. It should just be a carrot. It's those who are growing the foods with chemicals who should be asked, what chemicals are you putting into our food, and not the other way around. Organic is what nature intended. And so it's about going back to that, going back to nature, going back to our original self. Yes.
So it all has a theme.
Yes.
Going back to the original self.
Yes.
What you do with your life, what you've done with your life,
Yes.
what you're doing with others.
What you consume is very important, whether it's on the mind level, the physical level, or the spiritual level, because this is who you become.
Right. And on that note, we will take a break and we'll be right back. We're going to have a meditation. Is it a meditation that you're going to do with us? You're going to offer our listeners?
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you right then.
Icon Radio, your number one entertainment plug.